Awesome. We are live. Happy Sunday live, everyone. Gordana, welcome. Hello, and thanks for doing another I think very
Sunday
important
morning.
Sunday live today. What we're talking about is going to help a lot of people. I know I've been learning deep lessons on this subject. I know you
Mhm.
have too. So
Mm.
happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, Lucas. And I am so excited because this topic, as you say, is a really important one. It's to distinguish the difference between fear and anxiety, which is not always simple, but it could be simple if you just, pause for a while and taste the two different things. But
Right.
also, we're going to talk a lot about courage and how this is a transformative force when it comes to fear and to anxiety. So I am really, really excited about this today.
It's gonna be good. I in prep for this, it's funny. I was talking to some friends on a video call that we're working on some projects and just I was sharing what I've been going through with courage and speaking up
Mhm.
and literally
Mm.
not apologizing um
Mhm.
or shrinking when it came to something that I felt was right and true. And
Mm.
so we were talking about courage, and then I just happened to listen to a podcast talking about courage. I didn't know the subject was going to be about courage, but they ended up talking about courage,
Mhm.
and they talked about these Aristotle quotes, and I just had to read three of them. I thought they were so good. So Aristotle said, "Courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees the others." And
Mhm.
then he also said, "You will never do anything in this world without courage. It is the
Mhm.
greatest quality of the mind next to honor." And the last
Mhm.
one that I thought was really beautiful, and it's really more of what we're talking about today. He said, "I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies. For the hardest victory is over self." And all three of those just felt like that that conquering over self is the conquering over shrinking, of people pleasing, of apologizing for what we want to say, who we are, how we think, what we are here in this world to explore. And
Mhm.
so many of us are learning these lessons right now.
Yeah, because it's exactly what you're saying here. Being brave to oneself is at the core of bravery.
Yes.
Being true to oneself, meaning knowing who you are, being true to oneself is at the core of bravery. Now, there's a difference again, and I love this because English isn't my first language, so I'm just looking at the words very,
Yeah.
very intensely. So, what's
Yeah.
the difference between bravery and courage?
Mm,
Well, bravery is confronting something without fear, like
mm,
fearlessly confronting something.
yeah.
Whereas courage is confronting something despite or in spite of fear.
That's right. That's right.
So courage, it's almost like a more intense way, or courage is it's almost it takes more bravery to have
Mm,
an act of courage
mm,
because you have to act being afraid and yet acting. If
right.
you're brave, you're going to act, and then maybe afterwards you'll feel the fear, but you are acting in the spur of the moment.
Mm,
So for me, there's a difference between courage and bravery. And today we're talking about courage because courage is a harder thing from
absolutely.
my perspective seen. You have to go against an instinct. You
Mm,
have to go against fear. That
mm,
is what courage is.
yeah. Yeah. And all of us, I was talking to someone. I went to this conference a couple weeks ago, and this he's a been a special forces operator, really tough, very strong and articulate guy, and he was the opening keynote speaker at this event I was at. And he was speaking to the crowd, and it was about food freedom and health. And
Mhm.
this, we've talked about this. The food that you can buy in Europe is more associated with real food than what we can buy here in the United States.
I
It's
know.
mostly
Yeah.
chemicals and poison.
Mm.
So he was talking about food freedom and standing up and speaking out and
Mm,
living what you believe in. And I thought his talk was so good and very inspiring. And I started a lot of applause for him, where the whole crowd starts applauding. And
mm,
but afterwards, there was a missing ingredient. And I went up to him afterwards, and all these people were talking to him. And I went up and I said, "I loved your talk. Everything you said, I agree with. I support.
mm,
However, there's something I don't think you're sharing that everyone needs to hear, and that's how to be courageous." It's one thing
mhm,
for him, a special forces operator who
mhm,
has been physically, mentally, and emotionally trained through boot camp
mhm,
and all that, breaking down oneself and rebuilding oneself to go into
mhm,
a battle or confrontation, but most
mm,
people are not trained that way. And I said, so
mm,
when are we going to start teaching people courage, and how can we start teaching people courage? And he said, I'm so glad you brought this up. I wish I would have talked about this in the talk. He said, courage comes from community.
mm,
I thought that's interesting.
mhm,
And I was like, and I walked away and I thought, I've been thinking about that quite a bit. Courage comes from community. And why is that? I think because most people, we do experience fear of speaking up, fear of saying no, fear of,
mm,
autonomy and
mhm,
sovereignty, and fear of just speaking up for ourselves.
mm,
And when we feel that there is support, that we're not alone, that we're not isolated, then I think
mhm,
we can find more courage. But I think how most people are taught is that we are isolated. Abusers will isolate the victim, make the victim
mhm,
keep a secret. Shame
mm,
isolates people, makes people keep
mm,
secrets. And so we feel so isolated.
mm,
But as we find the courage to speak, as we find the courage to move forward, as we find the courage to even look within and look inside of ourselves,
mm,
and share that, we find that we're not alone. This is how you and I met, and how many,
mhm,
many meet. It's when we can
mhm,
actually find our voice, and we find that our community are these courageous souls all over the world who are making
mhm.
a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Without courage, we become hostage to our fears,
Right.
or even worse, we become hostage to our anxieties.
Mm,
It's almost easier to be hostage to a fear because fear has a face.
yes.
Anxiety doesn't. So you
Mm,
don't know what you're fighting and you become a hostage to it and you become isolated in that sense.
mm,
So again, going back to the words, there's a difference between fear and anxiety.
mm.
And what I've come to understand is that it's easier for me to deal with fear than it is to deal with anxiety. I have to find
Mm.
just, and this is because fear, let me put it this way, fear feels like a wall in front of me.
Yes. Yes.
It's tangible, it's present. I can hit it, I can push it, I can go around it. There's something in
Yes.
front of me. Anxiety wraps itself around me like a mist,
Mm.
and it disrupts my thoughts.
Yes.
And it's like a humming tune, like a haunting tune. And I can't grasp it because it has no face. It's unknown. It's almost as if anxiety is a fear of fear.
Yes.
So I have to start with giving my fear a face, like saying, what is it that I'm afraid of? And
Mm.
every single time that I felt anxiety, like a mist around me, I have to find the core to the anxiety, which is always a fear.
Yes.
And I always come to one spot. I always return to that fear of rejection.
Mm.
And when I can see that, okay, this is a fear of rejection, I can trace it back and say, well, this comes from my childhood because I was rejected
Yeah. Yeah.
over and over and over and over and over again by my parents.
Right.
But today I live with a husband who is not rejecting me. I have a son who is not rejecting me. My friends are not rejecting me. There's a track record.
Mm.
They're not rejecting me. So I have to remind myself, sit with this anxiety, sit through it. And that takes courage because I need to be present and allow the anxiety to go through me. When
Yes.
it comes to fear, it pushes me to act. I have to act like I'm doing this. I have to act because
Yeah.
there's fear.
Yeah.
Anxiety is different. And it took me a while to get to see the difference between the two because my initial reaction to everything that felt like fear, even if it was anxiety, was to fight. And if you don't have a face, you don't know what you're fighting, you fight yourself. And that's why anxiety is much, much worse than fear because fear is tangible. It is there. It is a teacher. It teaches you to act,
Mm,
whereas anxiety teaches you to release, to reflect. And I
mm,
couldn't see the difference between the two.
mm,
You can't act if you don't know what it is that you're afraid of, what it is that creates this space of anxiety that you cannot name or claim or use or
yeah.
do anything with. You're just like a prisoner to it, like this mist, you're sitting in it.
Mm,
So you have to find the root of it. And in order to be able to find the root, you have to have the courage to sit in the anxiety,
yeah. Yeah.
to let the energy go through you. You have to, it really takes courage because we are all afraid of the pain that fear will bring us. We're all afraid of it. It's existential, but you have to sit with it and
Right.
allow it to pass through. And then for me, it's like fear, you're acting on something, you can grasp it.
Mm,
Anxiety, you can't act on it because it's everywhere. You
yeah.
can't act on it. And it's a teacher. It teaches you to sit still. It teaches you to breathe. It teaches you to be present in the now moment and to allow, release, and let go. That is what anxiety teaches us.
Mm,
Fear teaches us to act.
yeah. Yeah.
It's a survival mechanism. And both of them are like we talk about fear as a guide and anxiety as a teacher. Well, fear guides you to survive.
Mm,
And there's a time where you are supposed to, act. But most of the time, you're not supposed to act. You're supposed to sit still, breathe, and figure out how to let this pass through you.
yeah.
That's the courageous act that if you do it over and over and over and over again, you realize that it is all passing through you.
Mm,
You are the one standing still. It is all passing through you. And you don't need to keep it. You can release it and let it go.
yeah.
It will be returning a couple of times because the universe always says, are you sure? Are you sure? And
Mm,
then it gets it. You're sure you don't need that energy anymore. And it is released.
yeah. Yeah. I think the choice too is if we don't stand still or be still and let it go
Mm-hmm.
through, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
seek relief rather than release.
Yes.
And relief just perpetuates the anxiety. Relief makes us tethered to
Yes.
something outside of ourselves that tries to numb
Mm-hmm.
to numb the anxiety. That's why
Mm-hmm.
people become addicted to whatever they're addicted to. It's because
Yes.
the sense of anxiety, whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
greater than the addiction of the relief mechanism that they're using. And it all stems back from anxiety. And that
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is it's the hidden fear that
Mm-hmm.
hides in the shadows. This is what we're talking
Yes.
about, dancing with the shadows. It is our
Mm-hmm.
greatest fear, but it's the one we've yet to look at and stare at and face and look into the abyss and looking back into the abuser's eyes and look back into whatever is the greatest fear, whether it's the fear of being killed, whether it's the fear of being rejected, whether it's the fear
Mm-hmm.
of whatever that is, pain,
Abandonment. Yes.
abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the core fears. And
Mm-hmm.
until we find the courage to be still
Mm-hmm.
and look at those in the eye and then say
Mm-hmm.
out of our heart and out of our mind and out of our
Mm-hmm.
gut and out of our soul, everything that we want to say without fear of reprisal, without fear of consequence, without fear of judgment or shame or someone else's opinion, that we all of a sudden find the power within ourselves being greater than that fear,
Mm.
we will be stuck in this anxiety vibration
Mhm.
that keeps us looking for relief rather than like what you're saying, standing still, letting it go through and allowing the release to happen.
You're absolutely right. And it is so important to find the core fear
Yeah. Yeah.
because the core fear is real. It just happened a long time ago.
Mm.
It happened when you were a child
Mm.
and it stayed there. For me personally, it was the question of rejection and abandonment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So every time I feel like I'm not able to control the outcome of something that is important to me, or I am not able to foresee the future in some way,
Mm.
how something is going, anxiety kicks in
Mm.
because that is my go-to. That is what happened to me as a child. I couldn't, as a child, no one can, as a child, control their parents.
Mm.
You can't control your parents' actions. You don't know your parents' thoughts. Sometimes they're not healthy people. Like my father was not emotionally healthy in any way. But as a child, you don't know that. So you're trying to control the situation and you cannot control it. There's punishment involved in this if you try to control it. So you give up and you stay in that anxiety that it is the whole situation can create within you, and you have no power to remove yourself from it. You need a parent to remove yourself from it, and
Yeah.
when that parent might not do it immediately, you stay in it for a very long time, and that becomes your normal way of reacting to something that you cannot control. And I am not alone in this. I think all of us have this within us.
Yes. This is so interesting. So we are at our very core conditioned to look for an authority outside of ourselves to remove
Yes,
us from
yes,
the uncomfortableness within ourselves, which then
yes,
allows the trappings of abusers, narcissists, sociopaths,
yes,
all the addictive traps
yes.
that are set before us to be outside authorities to try to take us out of.
Mhm,
That's a really interesting thing that we've always looked
mhm.
for. I mean, I haven't thought of that. We're always looking for the parent to remove us out of that
Yes.
trap. That's really interesting.
And it's not like we're weak.
Right.
It's a question of conditioning.
Yeah.
It's a question of how parent-child relationship is rigged from the beginning, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yes. And
And if you have a smart parent, they will come in and they will save you, but they will also teach you how to save yourself
right.
by forgiving you, by telling you that this is okay, being there for you. And if you don't have that, well, then you don't know how
Mm.
to soothe yourself. You don't know how to help yourself. So you're waiting for someone from the outside to help you. And if you're lucky, you might have a partner that understands this, but still, you have to do that within you. They might aid you in it, but they can't release you from it. They can't let go. You have to let go. And realizing that anxiety is the inner child being awakened and sending out the frequency that goes through your grown-up body, and you don't know what to do with it
Right.
because you're not recognizing the inner child, you're not recognizing anxiety. You might think that it is fear, but there is no face to the fear, so you will interpret it as there's something wrong with me.
Mm.
And there isn't. You just have to understand the difference between fear and anxiety, the difference between your grown-up self and your inner child, and the difference between courage and how courage works when you are in fear, that you need to fight or push or go around, whereas when you are in anxiety, courage is to sit with it,
Yeah.
allow it to pass, and soothe yourself. That's the courage there. So courage is one word, but it's different if it's fear or if it's anxiety you're dealing with.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think this journey of being in these corporal bodies and learning what we're here to learn is that even if the parent was capable of taking us out of that
Yes.
situation,
Mm-hmm.
that still is not the answer. That the answer is that, and you know, I've shared this I think before on a live, but the very first plant medicine ceremony I sat in, I
Mm-hmm.
realized that I am my own mother and father.
Yes,
And I've
yes,
always
yes.
been my own mother and
Mm-hmm.
father because ultimately there is no one else but myself and within of I've always had to be the masculine energy for myself and the feminine energy for myself. And I've
Mm-hmm.
always had to do that for that inner child. And I think that's the, if there is a holy trinity, that's the holy trinity of awakening, that
Yes.
those energies are within ourselves. And it, once we can understand that if we're looking constantly for an external savior, an external parent, I just love this, that maybe it all comes down to we're looking for a parent to take us out of the circumstance,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
addiction replaces that parent and numbs the anxiety. But
Mm-hmm.
until we come to that place of courage to face whether it's external, like you're saying, fear, or find the courage to face
Mm-hmm.
the abyss that we
Mm-hmm.
don't know where yet it's coming, we can never be free to, I think, find self-love. Here's one of the things why this I think ties back to love of self and self-love. For me, I never understood the concept of self-love ever. And I
Mm-hmm.
sought it, and I, would read and meditate and study and pray and all the different methodologies,
Mm-hmm.
but still I couldn't understand, well, I love myself. I didn't understand love. Even though I
Mm-hmm.
sought love, I never understood love until I found the courage to face everything. And then I
Mm-hmm.
was so proud of myself. I'm like, wow, I am the hero
Mm-hmm.
of my own story. There is no one else,
Yes.
no external, no myth, no parent, no one in this world
Mm-hmm.
that I am more proud of than I am of myself, because I went through the darkness to find all the things that kept me stuck. I think this is the core where self-love is peddled as some new age doctrine or some
Mm-hmm.
self-help, methodology of, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately self-love comes from courage and
Yeah.
sitting in the abyss or the stillness, as you call it.
Mm. Yes, it comes from the courage to do so and realize that it's not as dangerous as you thought. It's
Mm,
not as painful as you thought. It's not as uncertain as you thought, because the stillness is always ease.
mm,
It's always ease. It's the courage to not jump into the movement that is around you, to just sit with it and allow it to go through you. There's another thing: when parents do not come and save you, you sit with it and you think, I am not worthy of saving.
yes.
I am not worthy of saving. And then when you grow up, you think, what does self-love actually mean?
Right.
Of course, you can't connect to self-love because you don't know your own worthiness. You're
Mm,
not connected to it. So you have to find your own worthiness. You have to find it. No one else can bring it to you. You have to find it within. So
right.
you have to sit there and just be still and breathe yourself to ease. And that's how you find your own worthiness. But you have to have the courage and the trust, the patience to do this.
Mm,
It's not like you do it immediately, everything is fine and everything is golden, you forget all the pain. No, the pain is always there. But once you feel the ease that you can create yourself, you also become more courageous because you know that it is there. So you
yes.
have to do it, to feel it, and then to repeat it as many times as needed in order for you to understand that you sit with the button of ease. Like you do it for yourself. There is no one from the outside doing it for you.
Right.
And I think that for me, that has been the absolutely biggest lesson ever, to understand that I am the one that Sometimes I can't do it. Sometimes I feel like, oh, there's too many things at stake here. I need to be alert. There is real danger, real fear here, and I can't sit through it. And that's okay.
Mm,
And sometimes it's easier. I'll just sit with it and I will align with the stillness within me to understand what the truth is.
mm, mm,
And I had this thought before I went to sleep yesterday. I was thinking about our Sunday Live, and I'm thinking, if the stillness is the truth and the stillness is the unknown, the stillness has to be all that is, and all that is darkness, then darkness is the truth, and the light is my truth.
mm,
So whatever I'm shining my light on, that becomes my truth. That
mm,
doesn't mean that it is even close to the truth, which is all that is, being all that is,
mm,
with nothing outside of it, being still. Nothing is happening. That is the truth. And then I shine my light on it. And when I am in anxiety, my light will either be too dim for me to see, or it will be pointed into the wrong direction.
mm.
So I need to align myself with the stillness, allow it to go through, and all the things that are blocking my view, releasing them and letting them go and sitting with it. Trust for me has been one of the biggest things. When I'm sitting in anxiety and feeling it around me, I can't trust that the future will bring me what I need and what I want. So I have to let go of the control. I have to let go of the things that I think are very important to me and just sit with it and allow the universe to do its work. And it usually does, because it is a benevolent place. We
Yes.
just have to allow that force through us. We block the benevolent force
Yeah.
by thinking malevolent thoughts
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
about ourselves mostly.
Right. There's a quote. Um,
Mm.
oh God. Let's see. Thomas Paine, who was one of the founding fathers of the United States and wrote, his books are some of the most profound writings and teachings. He
Mm.
wrote the book Common Sense. He said, belief in a cruel God makes a
Mm.
cruel man. Belief in a
Yes.
cruel God makes a cruel man. And belief in it being malevolent makes for seeking malevolence in. But if you really understand that it is benevolent and there is
Mm.
love, and love is what sustains all life and all nature and all
Mhm.
course of cadence, and then we will be able to seek and
Mhm.
trust that on the other side of the veil, be it fear, or on the other
Mhm.
side of us sitting in that stillness, we do find ourselves and it is working in our favor and all things are happening for our good.
Mhm. Yes. To
Despite
understand.
what
Yeah.
we're taught, despite what
Yes.
media teaches us,
Yes.
and Hollywood teaches us, and maybe our own experiences have taught us, despite all of it,
Mm.
on the other
Mm.
side of it is goodness
Mm.
and it is working in our favor.
Without a doubt, for me, when I look at a child's perspective of this, and this is where this filter or this pattern or this conditioning is being done to a child. For me, it's like I am a 6-year-old and I have a figure of authority, which is my father. He's not healthy, but everybody's acting as if he is healthy. So he does something that makes me upset, and then he will hold a grudge. He will withhold love because I reacted in the wrong way,
Mm,
which means that I will be sitting in uncertainty because I don't know when he will stop holding a grudge, when he will stop stonewalling, when he will stop withholding his love. So I'm suspended and I'm waiting for him to help me. And when I start soothing myself as a 6-year-old, I'm thinking, okay, he'll forget this. Tomorrow, everything will be fine. I wake up in the morning and it's not fine because he's still the way he was then. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and maybe a week passes, and I start thinking it'll never be good again, which means that I I make this anxiety more real within me, and I start believing that there is no help anywhere. This is the pattern that is set. And then when I'm a grown up, there is no figure of authority. There is no father. There is a universe out there,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is my figure of authority.
Yeah.
So I implement that pattern of a crazy father
Yes.
on a universe that is actually benevolent, that will help me every time. But I can't trust it because experience tells me, empirical experience tells me, you can't trust that
Yeah.
because it will still hurt you a week after that. So there is no trust. So for me, the courage is to say, I can trust this. This will work out for me. And as soon as I do that, it it is resolved because the universe is a loving place. It
Yes.
is a benevolent place. It will give you exactly what you ask for.
Yes. Yes. And is
So you
giving
see,
exactly what we're asking for now, even
it,
if we're unconscious of what we're asking.
exactly, exactly. It is giving because you need to see it and learn. It cannot learn for you. You have to learn yourself. So coming back to this, it's really important to understand, where does this fear come from?
Yeah.
Or what is this mist of anxiety? Why am I feeling it? And
Yes.
for me, I really have to work backwards to see that it comes from the fear of being rejected, of
Mm.
being ostracized, of being not loved, of being, not valued as a human being.
Mm.
And when I can see that, I can go into my higher self, you saying mothering and fathering myself, and saying that is not the truth. You
Right.
have a value because you're alive. You are in this universe. You are a creation of it. You're God's creation.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you be worthy of happiness and joy and, love? Why wouldn't you be worthy of it?
Right.
So it's to track it back to its core fear, because there is a core fear spreading this mist of anxiety, and you have to track it back. Where is this fear?
Mm. It is there are so many there's systems that are in play that are
Mhm,
creating the experience in the collective that we're all experiencing. And there's the social system, there's the governmental
mhm,
systems, and then there's the family systems, there's the
mhm,
religious systems. And there's a couple things at play. I feel like part of my purpose and mission is to help people liberate themselves so that they can be liberated from the social system, the governmental system, the family system, religious
mhm,
systems. But it's interesting that if we aren't aware of the family system, we
mhm.
will get used into all these greater systems. Yes, we just get placed in another system. And
Yeah,
then
we.
these bigger systems teach parenting
Mhm,
incorrectly
mhm,
and keep this cycle going. I've said so often that the word spank, I'm going to say this
mhm,
again, and this might trigger people. It's okay. The word spank, the etymology means to hit a horse to make it run faster. So I
mhm,
ask parents, and when I do retreats, were you hit as a child? And most of them say no. And then I ask them, well, were you spanked as a child? And they say yes. And then I look
mhm.
at them.
The same thing.
What's the difference? Because someone told you the word is different.
Yeah.
And so that's a teaching within a microcosm system that then puts someone in a macro system that keeps them
Mhm,
in this perpetual state of mental slavery and
mhm,
exhaustion and
mhm,
thinking that the world is malevolent because
mhm,
and this microsystem be any different than the macro system out there. We have to go back and heal the
mhm,
only system that matters, which is the one within ourselves. And when we
mhm,
can liberate this system,
mhm,
then we can liberate ourselves from the family system and all these other systems. But until we
mhm,
go and heal, face, feel, and then release all that,
mhm.
I don't blame people for thinking that the
No.
cruel and harsh and brutal and
Yes, because where you shine your light, that will become your reality. And if you think that, then you will be experiencing it, and it
yeah,
will perpetuate the anxiety of it.
yeah,
You know, I had this reoccurring lucid dream when I was a child, especially between the ages of 6 and 8. Maybe that was when I was moved back to my parents' home from my 6 year visit, in quotation mark, with my aunt. Um, I had this reoccurring thing, and I couldn't understand what it was, and it was always before I fell asleep.
Mm,
I would almost imagine as if my bed was on a line, and I
mm,
was a line that is suspended somewhere in the universe. So the universe above, the universe below, and my bed was on that line, and it was balancing like this. And sometimes when I turned around, it would flip over and I would fall, and I would wake up from the fall. And then I kind of refined that dream or lucid dream where I would balance on the line. There was no bed, I was balancing on the line. There was a little bit more control for me there. And I would
mm,
be balancing on this line until I fell asleep. This was something that came back all the time. And now when I look at it as a grown up, I understand what it was. It is my subconscious mind balancing me, understanding that there is no one else here.
mm,
It's me. And I am the one balancing. And the more steady, the more fearless I am, the less this will rock, the less I will, lean here or there. I
yeah.
have to stay on the line with myself.
Yes. Yes.
And that was the period where I stopped speaking up and saying all the things that I wanted to say. So there was no courage on the outside, but there was courage on the inside, because I knew that I was alone and that I couldn't interact with these people, because I would be in, I would be punished if I did something wrong.
Mm,
So it was a way for me to survive, to understand that I am alone in this. This was a vast universe, like me on a string,
yeah.
walking like this. And it's so interesting to go back to this and see how there is a subconscious mind in a child, which is connected to all that is, which is connected to divinity, which is connected to balance.
Yes.
And in moments of distress, I returned to that always. Even though I didn't understand what it was, it just brought me some kind of peace where I knew that I could balance it. And I felt proud of myself. I could
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
There was achievement in this, but it was like balancing myself as a 6 year old.
Mm. Also,
It,
what's so
yeah,
beautiful is you're bringing everything back into yourself. I think
yes.
so often we're like, so word, a sieve, like they're looshing our energy. They create these narratives
Mm-hmm.
and we give our energy out. We're
Mm-hmm.
constantly just losing our life
Mm-hmm.
force, our inner chi, our energy,
Yes.
our prana.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's constantly being um, diluted and
Quote. Mm-hmm.
used and pulled and all these things. And what's so beautiful about you and that lucid dream is
Mm-hmm.
you bring everything back in and
Mm-hmm.
then you're
Yes.
contained and there is no need of a thing, a person,
Mm-mm.
all within. Yes.
All within like a balancing act. And it might sound like you know, like a dark thing to do as a child. But for me, it wasn't. It was like I was balancing in it. And it felt as if this was something I could do. No one told me. There was no one to tell me, to guide me, to show me I was doing this. There was full control, and it was within me. It
Hmm.
was really amazing thing to do as a 6 year old for me. I haven't done that for a very long time, but preparing for this Sunday Live, I actually remembered it, and I'm thinking, why did I do this? And I understand why I did it.
Hmm.
You were talking about, the three pillars, the middle
Yeah.
pillar, you're in the middle, not being pulled in any direction.
Right.
Now, living with two people, a mother and a father pulling in somewhere, you need to find the balance. And in my imagination, I found it
Hmm.
on this line, walking there like a ballerina. I didn't even have a umbrella like they usually have. I was just walking like this, and I felt powerful when I did that.
So beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, as we're coming to a close of this, I just first of all, I love you, and I'm so thankful for you. I
Oh,
know so many people. John, a guy named John Durante's on the chat.
mm.
Just
Oh,
thank
hi, John.
for sharing your wisdom and making the world a better place. And these conversations are happening more and more. People are,
Mhm,
I find this, whether I was in, I told you my story in Paris or told people are
mhm.
having real conversations, and
Yes.
the the systems
Mhm,
that have offered solutions, and they've been offering the same solution for thousands and thousands of years, which have kept the world
mm,
in a perpetual cycle of mental
mm,
slavery and being stuck. People are waking up and saying, I
mm.
don't think so. And
Exactly.
we're sharing these journeys of within,
Mm,
and love is all, ultimately it is all love. We
mm,
can choose darkness, we can choose light, we can choose pain, we can choose we can choose whatever we want, because
mm,
this entire existence, love says, I give you all opportunity and all
mm,
experiences.
mm,
And that's why bringing it to our course, and something that I think is so important.
mm,
So many people feel stuck, and it's like, well, this sounds good. Well, how? Give me the
mm.
how. And we did this course, undoyourpast.com. Everyone can go to undoyourpast.com and find the course. It's what we put forth is what you and I have done for ourselves with each other,
Yes.
and also now
Yes.
everyone can join in this journey. And may it be a blessing of liberation for every
Mm,
soul that is hungering for to find themselves and find the freedom that they really want.
absolutely. We have brought, we have, we have found the tools that have worked for us, and we are sharing the tools there. It's not about, lingering in the past forever and ever.
Right.
It's about recognizing the pattern and then bringing it back, internalizing or coming close to your inner child so that you become one with it, so
Yes.
that it doesn't send out its energy through you without you knowing it.
Right.
It's ultimately about control in a way, even though you don't need more control in your life, but still it's about understanding and being able to control certain impulses.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And it's a question of that. So I am so proud of that course, and I hope
Yes.
that people will go
Same.
there and see
Same.
if it's something for them. I just need to say hi to John because it's such a
Yes.
long time we saw each other. So hi, John.
Said hi, Gordana. Thank you both for sharing. This was really great wisdom shared. So he
Oh, thank you. Thank you, John.
blessed. Thank you for
Mm.
a great live. I love you. And everyone, thank you for watching. And we'll see you next Sunday for another live.
Yes, we will. Thank you.